All right, in our first half hour, we took a closer look at Illinois politics, and now we're on the other side of the river to wrap up the Iowa legislative session. Last week, lawmakers worked through Wednesday night into Thursday morning to pass the necessary budget bills to end this spring's session. And it was a legislative session that began with the repealing of gender identity protections under Iowa's Civil Rights Act. Lawmakers also approved some of Governor Kim Reynolds' top proposals, including a student cell phone ban, a driving cell phone ban, and the expansion of medical residency slots, as well as bills related to rural health care. But one of Republicans' top priorities was not even brought up for debate. There were no property tax proposals this year. So while Republicans control the House, Senate, and governorship in Iowa, Democrats say nothing was done this session for housing, high health care costs, and inflation. So joining us now with a wrap-up of what was accomplished this session is Dana Searles of our sister station, WOI in Des Moines. All right, Dana, let's start with Medicaid. Work requirements were passed this year for Iowans on the state's Health and Human Services Wellness Plan. So what's going on here?
Yeah, so this last week of session was a lot of pushing those final priorities across the finish line. So in this specific bill, it all falls under the Iowa Health and Wellness Plan and who qualifies for that. So people who qualify for that is able-bodied adults who are low income, ages 19 to 64. So in this bill, it would require those who qualify for that plan to work at least 80 hours a month in order to receive that money for that coverage under the Health and Wellness Plan.
Another priority of Governor Reynolds that was also passed has to do with unemployment insurance taxes. What's going on here?
So Iowans would see nearly a $1.2 billion tax cut on the money that they pay into the state's unemployment trust fund. So right now, all of your taxes, there is a portion of that that goes into that unemployment fund. So this would make a cut from that, and it would also make the minimum payment for employers to pay their employees who are now under unemployment. Right now, the minimum is 7% of their salary. This would lower that to 5.4% of their salary. Right now, Iowa has about $2 billion in its unemployment trust fund. So a lot of those lawmakers say that is enough, and they do have a lot in that trust fund bank right now, which is why they want to make that cut. So a lot of numbers there, a lot of moving pieces to that. But ultimately, the biggest message that lawmakers want to get across with this bill and the benefits of it would have for Iowans is that they would see that $1.2 billion tax cut when it comes to paying those unemployment taxes.
Well, there was a bill that passed this session that had to do with state employees. What are their new leave policies?
Yeah, so originally state employees did not have any leave policies, whether it was maternity or paternity. They didn't have any covered days off if somebody were to get pregnant and have a baby. So now this new bill, it gives state employees 4 weeks of paid maternity leave and then 1 week of paid paternity leave. And then it also accounts for people who adopt a child. Iowa would now join 36 other states if this bill is ultimately signed into law, who also have paid time off for their state employees.
All right, Dana, finally for us, this year's session went into overtime. I mean, lawmakers didn't pass a budget before the session was supposed to end, and it was largely because a group of 12 Republican senators refused to vote on a budget without a vote on eminent domain first. So it eventually happened. What was the eminent domain bill that they eventually passed this year?
So it was a big bill with a lot of moving parts. They actually earlier in the session combined multiple bills together to make this one bill regarding eminent domain. So overall, what it would pass, it would do a long list of things, but some of the key things that this bill would do is it would require utilities coalitions, anybody wanting to build a pipeline, they would require them to have certain insurance requirements. That way, if something were to happen, they would be able to cover any costs or any impacts that landowners could have. It also implements certain rules for hearings on proposed pipeline projects, and then it adds guidelines for who can intervene in Iowa Utilities Commission's cases. Ultimately, this bill passed out of the Senate in a vote of 27 to 22. So it was those 12 Republican lawmakers who joined all Democrats in voting for this bill to get it across. I know we talked about it last week, the 12 Republican senators who said they would not vote on any budget bills until this was debated, and and how that would break the majority in the Senate. So ultimately it did. It was debated. However, it is still unclear if Governor Reynolds will sign this bill. I think that's the big question that people still have. Is it got through the House, it got through the Senate, but now the question is the governor still has to sign it into law if this were to be enacted.
And we'll wait and see what happens. Dana, thank you so much for your time today. And for you guys at home, as always, we've compiled our political coverage for both sides of the river on WQAD.com. Just click on the As Seen on TV tab at the top of the homepage.